Hello there, and welcome to my collage art studio. In this getting started video, I'll show you how to cut your floral shapes and vases and prepare your leftover scraps so you're ready to jump right into creating beautiful floral collages during our Floral Wednesday sessions. Let's first take a look at the collage papers we'll be using today. These are from the Cozy Nook Floral Collage Art Kit. If you need help with printer settings, you'll find a separate Printing Your Printables video in the Getting Started section. If your printer creates white borders along the page, you can keep those as is. There's no need to trim the white edges at this time. We have 4 pages in the core project: the floral shapes on collage paper, small and large vases on collage paper, and a page of circles in 3 sizes on white paper. These will be used to assemble your collage flowers. All the Floral Collage Art Kits are set up the same with these 4 sheets from the core project PDF. Now we're going to go ahead and cut out our shapes from the collage papers. What we'll need here is a paper trimmer or a large pair of scissors, and then I also recommend a small pair of detailed scissors with a fine tip. What I like to do first is to cut these in 4, and I'm going to go ahead and use my paper trimmer. If you don't have a paper trimmer, you can use the large pair of scissors. So we're just cutting it in half and then cut it like this. So we have the 4 pieces, and I'm going to go ahead and do the same for the vases. Okay, so we have all of these cut out. In the last sheet, we have the circles, and for one collage art kit, all we need is 4 large, 4 medium, and 4 small circles. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these out. And this we can use for other collage art kits, or we can use for fodder, so I'll put this aside. Now let's take a look at the flower petals. For each sheet, we have large, medium, and small petals, and then large, medium, small circles. These are going to be used to make large, medium, and small flowers. So let's go ahead. What I like to do here is to cut these out like this. So just separating out the large, medium, small, and then the circles. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same for the last 3. Okay, we can move this to the side, and then let's take a look. These are the sheets that we're going to need for making the flowers. And again, I'll show you here. So we have a large, medium, and small. And then each flower is made up of petals. And depending on what kit you're working on, this one has 5 petals. Some of them have 4, some 5, some 6. So we have the petals, we have the circle that goes in the center, and then in the back is where the white circle is. So these are going to be used to assemble it. And we'll be going over that in the Floral Wednesdays. I'll probably do a separate video as well for you to just take a quick look. All right, let's go ahead and cut out the petals. And there's 2 things that we're going to keep in mind. We want to cut on the outside of the black line for the petals and these circles. And we're going to try to keep the background intact as much as we can because we're going to be using the background for fodder sheet. So let me show you what I mean here. Here I was able to cut out the shapes but keep this all in one piece. So I'm going to make a little cut to get up to the petal, and then I'm going to take my scissor and go around the black line all the way around the petal. So as close as I can, not worrying about being absolutely perfect, just cutting it out just like that. So we'll do the same thing for all of the petals, the small, medium, and large. And then we're also going to do the same thing for the circles. Now there are 3 extra circles here to assemble the flowers. We're only going to need 3 of them, but I go ahead and cut out the extras as well. So you can do what you want, but I'm just letting you know that there's an extra set of these circles. So just going around again on the outside. Now for the white circles, we're doing these different. We want these a little bit smaller than these. So instead of going on the outside, we're going to go on the inside. Because all of this is going to be layered and we want this white circle to be hidden. So doing it a little bit smaller will help with that. So just like that. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go relax, maybe listen to some music or a podcast. I'm going to cut out all of these shapes and then I'll be back. But actually, before I do that, I forgot to show you the vases. So we have the vases and we're going to do the same thing that we did with the petals. And that is cutting on the outside of the black line. And then again, trying to keep that background intact because we're going to be able to use that, whoops, for some collage fodder. Okay, and there we go. So the vases and then the flower components, with the exception of the white, we're doing on the outside, and then the white we're going on the inside. So I'm going to go relax into it, and then I'll be back with everything cut out. Okay, I'm back with everything cut out. Right here, I have my flower petals in all the circles in this container. I'll go ahead and set that aside. We have the bases and then the backgrounds and then the white circle scrap there. And then here I have laid out the scraps from the flower petals and the circles. What we're going to do now is glue these down to a white piece of paper. And I'm going to give you a preview here. This is what we're going for. This is a fodder sheet, so all of the scraps are laid down, and then I added doodles to the white spaces in there. And then you can see that we can use those in our collages. So here are the little pieces of the fodder sheet in here. And then actually you can see the leftover scrap from the white circles. This is a fun thing to add to collages as well. So I'm going to set this aside. And what we need at this point is some matte Mod Podge and a Mod Podge brush. I also have a large brush. And then whenever I'm using the Mod Podge, I like to have a wet and dry cloth just to keep everything nice and clean. And I'm working on a silicone craft mat here. What I'm going to do at this point, let's just move this over a bit, is we're going to take the Mod Podge and we want to coat a layer of Mod Podge on the white paper. We want it nice and thick, so you want to kind of feel the brush slide. And then we're going to go ahead and glue our pieces down. So just tapping it down. And the reason we want this a nice layer is so that we can slide it just right. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the next one. So a nice coat of Mod Podge, and then slide that right in. And then lining them up. I'm not worrying about being absolutely perfect. If some of it overlaps, that's okay. You can still make some nice fodder. And I'm going to go ahead, speed up the video, and get the rest of these glued down. All right, so I have everything glued down now. Just going to lift it up just to make sure it's not sticking. And then the last thing I want to do is to coat the entire surface with Mod Podge. So I want a nice protective layer. This is going to also bring out the brilliance of the ink on the paper. And then when we're using our acrylic markers to add doodles, this protective layer will allow us to wash off the acrylic marker if we make a mistake. As long as the marker is still wet, we can quickly wash it off. Without the protective layer, that the acrylic markers would just soak right into the paper. So just doing this last bit here, getting a nice coating on it. I'm going to set this aside, lift this up. I'm going to set that aside to dry, and then I want to wash off my workspace. Now we're ready for the last step, which is to glue the scraps from the vases onto a piece of paper. So we could go ahead and do the same thing and use a white piece of paper, but I wanted to give you some other ideas. You can go ahead and print out some collage paper from the collection. This is a full sheet. This has a pattern background, so maybe instead of the white, we could do that. I also grabbed a quarter sheet. So this has the grayscale. You could play around with something like that. And then this is another quarter sheet. This has a lighter value, so a lighter color than these, and you can place them down and you can actually match up the pattern. So here are the hearts, the flowers, and then the circles here. So something like that. So I think I'm going to go ahead and glue them down to this one. And we're going to do it the same way. I'm going to take the Mod Podge, the matte Mod Podge. I'm going to go ahead and use the larger brush for this. And I'm going to do a coat, a nice thick coat so that it's slippery. So I can feel that brush glide. And then line it up. This slides nice and easy because there's enough Mod Podge on it. And then press it down. Just trying to get all of this just like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of it. All right, and then the last step is to put a layer of Mod Podge on the entire surface. Again, we want to seal that, bring out the brilliance in the paper, and then it'll also allow us to use the acrylic markers on here. And if we want, we could wash off the markers if we make any mistakes. So a nice coat to seal it. Okay, so at this point, if you're done with your brushes, it's a good time to wash them out so that they don't dry. I'm going to set mine aside for now. What I want to do is lift this, place it somewhere so that it can dry flat. So I'm going to just set it over here, and then I'm going to wash off my workspace. All right, so let's take a look at what we did today to get ready for Floral Wednesday. We have the fodder sheet from the petals, the fodder sheet from the vases. We still have some leftover scraps for the large vases, and I'll go ahead and decide on what background I want to do for those, and I'll complete that. We have all of our vases, as well as this scrap here that could be used as fodder. And then we have all of the components so that we can go ahead and create our collaged flowers. And then I did go ahead and wash out my brushes, so I'm just reminding you to do that. And then we're all set. We have everything ready for Floral Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to creating floral collages with you.